Good morning to Kirst. Here we are. We're back day after the debate. Curse of Politics, Deb Hutton, Scott Reid, still no Jordan Leichnitz, but special guest today is our pollster Kyla who last night was doing some testing of people watching the debate, and she'll have some data to share with us in a moment. So let's just get started off the top with a little banter before Kyla tells us what her data was about what we thought of the leaders' debate last night, what we described as probably the last real chance for a change in the dynamic of this election campaign. So, Scott, prepared many a debate, watched many a debate. What did you think last night?
Well, first of all, let's be honest. Doug Ford is the gold medal world champion, master of misfortune, right? He is the fortunate king of misfortune. He calls an election about tariffs and Trump, and then Trump goes off like a cuckoo clock every 15 minutes with a new threat, rallying the country to the point where we're booing national anthems, forcing it to the top of the issue set. Then he, goes to Washington once every 3 days to reinforce that. And then on the day of the debate, which is already scheduled at 6:30 p.m. and no one is watching after a snowstorm, there's a giant plane crash at Pearson. So there's these are horrible, misfortunate events that are incredibly fortuitous for him. So I thought that he was more under fire than I expected, just because the cumulative weight of everybody going at him, really showed up, but generally held his cool. I thought that Crombie was the weakest pure performer, looked nervous at times, consulting her notes, laughing off mic, which is a personal peeve of mine, but maybe had the best moments of the best pure performance moments. I think when I look at the clips, her clips keep showing up. So the things that I thought personally as old man, I don't like the way that the debate's coming off. She's too hot. She's too harsh. It sounds too angry. I think those things push their way to the top of the news clips and maybe gives her more meme material coming out of this. I don't know if that punches through. And I thought Marit had a hard time. She's so appealing on camera, but her message seemed really diffuse. So it started on affordability, but then it was about tariffs. Then it was about she's got so much message territory she's covering. So I don't know if this thing changed. I hate it when people go oh, was there not good punch, But I think that maybe if you're Ford, I think you're probably pretty pleased because it doesn't feel like anybody really laid a licking on you. But I think if you're Crombie, you might have stolen, I think almost in spite of what I thought was a super uneven performance, might have stolen a couple moments. And maybe that's all that people care about anyway these days.
All right. Deb, what do you think?
Well, hang on to your hat, but I agree with Scott 100%.
Holy.
I know. I thought...
It's going to be a short show.
No harm in that.
I thought Bonnie's performance was awful, really awful. Didn't use her camera, didn't, know her main, even on healthcare, she got the first opportunity to answer on healthcare, which should be her ground. And it was her notes and she's looking down and it was awful. And Scott used the word hot. That's the term I used last night. She just came in way, way, way too hot. However, I read the clips this morning for real people who, don't sit there for an hour and a half last night and make my kids eat dinner and watch the debate. And she got some lines out. So her feistiness, which I called way too hot, actually appeared to break through. It's interesting because I think if you listen to it on radio, some people may be still in their cars coming home from family day. If they bothered to listen, it probably sounded better than it looked on TV because I really thought it was awful. I have to say, Mike Schreiner dropped, I don't know how many points in his debate performance. He was so good last year. This year, I thought he was angry and irrelevant and looked kind of, I don't know, it was a weird look for him.
Okay, having got that out of the way, Ms. Fitch, what were you doing last night? First of all, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Kyla.
Hi. It's early. I don't know how you're doing this.
Some would argue we're not.
No, that's right.
I mean,
what were you up to last night?
Yeah, so I basically did the Relay Strategies version of a dial test. So, I think there's a lot of political junkies that listen to this podcast, but if you're unfamiliar, it's sort of a way of collecting feedback for every moment of the debate. So you see it often during, CNN presidential debates. My version of it is all of it is done through text message. So I recruited two different sets of people. So my swing left voters, so people that have written off voting for Doug Ford, but would consider both the NDP and the Liberals. So the people that are really going to decide at this point, official opposition. And then I also looked at, I call them my kind of loose PC voters. So people that are currently planning to vote PC, but they're the most loosely aligned. They say that they're only, possibly voting for the party. So the people that they're about 10% of the PC's voting base. So the people that I think of as being the most easily able to kind of pick off the low-hanging fruit. So what I had them do. Oh,
before you get into what you found.
Yep.
Drum roll, please. Today's Relay Strategies polling is brought to you by Enbridge Gas. Reliable, affordable natural gas to heat your homes and power our economy. Okay. What do you got?
Expert podcaster. To just hit that cliffhanger moment. So what I had participants do, they answered a few questions for me before the debate, really trying to understand kind of their expectations, who they thought was going to win, what they were looking for. And then throughout the debate, they texted us a thumbs up or a thumbs down emoji for every moment that they liked and didn't like what was happening on stage. And then we aggregated all of that data kind of on the back end and then asked them a few follow-up questions after. So what we found was a bad night for Ford. Really, I think he kind of disappeared.
But hang on, sorry. Just to be crystal clear, this sample are people who like almost no one's going to vote for Ford or they're very, very loosely affiliated with Ford, right? So that's not a shocking or necessarily representative finding, right?
Yeah. So this is qualitative research. So that's really important to point out. This isn't, I'm not expecting that these results then tonight when I go into the field and do my polling, that we see identical results. I do expect, maybe some movement based on the findings, but half of the people are voting for Ford. Like these are, people that are parking their vote with Ford that have voted for in the past.
They're the people that had him at 50.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
They're the people that
40 to 50 people.
And the people that could take it from a, 40, 47, 45 PC race to maybe lower 40s or mid 40s as opposed to.
Well, he'll feel like a horse's ass if he only gets 47%. What a humiliation.
So just, I guess, to give a little bit more of the explainer of why it was kind of a bad night for him. So I had asked, I already knew, from kind of my pre-screening how they planned to vote. So of the 14 people that we had that were kind of these loose PC voters, people that had parked their vote, 2 of those people moved to the Greens, 3 to the NDP, 1 became undecided, and 5 moved to the Liberals, which means they kept 2 people. For the kind of swing left voters, this is where if sort of this two-directional move happened. So a lot of the kind of more right-leaning voters, they moved, more often than not to the Liberals, whereas the left-leaning voters moved more so to the NDP. So of the 4 people that were initially planning to vote for the Liberals, 2 of them moved to the NDP, 1 moved undecided, and 1 stayed with the Liberals. So you kind of had this sort of two-way movement.
And okay, so what you're saying is that the left, the anti-Ford left was attracted to Styles' performance.
Yeah. And
the soft conservative voter was attracted to Crombie's performance.
Exactly.
Right. Do you have any inkling as to why?
There were, also, a lot of this, I don't want to ignore Schreiner's performance because I think he did a lot of, even though I don't think he came out as the person to benefit from the exchanges, he did a lot of kind of meat tenderizing. Like he had a few good moments on Ford, critiquing him on education, on ODSP. Like there were a few moments where he actually had some good critiques and moments that resonated with these kind of more conservative voters as well. So for I guess the why of why they performed well, I think I would agree. I was listening to the debate. I felt like Mart's message ended up a little bit diffused as well. But I think she's so likable and she's so good on camera that I think that was kind of the message. Like she just had and a more kind of consistent performance overall. Like there wasn't any moment in time where she spiked the negative reactions, whereas Crombie had a few of those moments, and Ford definitely had a few of those moments. But I think she was just kind of even, and people just liked her.
The Ontario Real Estate Association has been telling us that Ontario's housing crisis is pushing the dream of home ownership further and further out of reach for too many Ontario families, and that municipal development charges, or MDCs, are a big part of this problem. MDCs are intended to pay for growth-related costs that accompany new housing construction. Think roads, utilities, and water infrastructure. But increasingly, we've seen many municipalities treat MDCs like a source of general revenue, placing an unfair tax burden on home buyers by adding up to $135,000 to the price of an average home. Ouch! Aurea understands that municipalities have struggled to keep up with the pace of growth. But with billions of dollars in revenue from MDCs remaining unspent, it is Ontario's homeowners who are on the hook for these excessive costs that are making it even harder to own a home. Aurea has offered solutions, like allowing municipalities to offer water and wastewater as they do energy, amortized across the user base. Whatever the final solution may be, Ontario's municipalities must find approaches to generating revenue that does not involve passing costs down to consumers. To read Aurea's plan on how to save the dream of home ownership, read their full election platform, A Home for Everyone 2025, at aurea.com/platform. What did your respondents think was Ford's worst moment?
I think, you know what? They weren't necessarily his gaffes. Like there were a couple things that popped up around talking about the green belt and kind of like his reversal of his decision. I don't know what he said. I was clear, but I wasn't. Then I was clear again. I don't know. So that was one of the moments that kind of spiked, but a lot of it were critiques of him that were kind of the most negative moments that resonated. So Schreiner talking about the poor state of healthcare, a lot of them were Schreiner moments that his criticisms were really resonating. So a lot of stuff around, for giving the $200 checks, a lot of stuff around kind of his priorities being off, freezing wages for education workers. Like there were a lot of kind of moments like that really resonated.
But if I was running the Ford campaign, I wanted to have shitty moments. I'd want to have them on ODSB with Schreiner. So really that's interesting.
Deb, do you have a question for Kyla?
Well, my reaction to all of it is sort of like no big surprises here. People who are not thrilled with Ford and are looking for an option, or who would never vote for Ford, didn't think he did as well as other people did. So that, again, that doesn't surprise me. I think I'd be curious, Kyla, about Bonnie's close. So when she actually made the appeal to people who voted New Democrat last time to come on board the Liberal train.
I thought you said her clothes. I thought you were about to ask, what did people think of what she was wearing? I was going to be like, oh man, I'm not sure we should go there. Like, is that...
This is the highbrow discussion we have.
Yeah,
on this
we're getting
podcast.
to the bottom of it.
No, but I am curious about her closing message, whether that appealed to this group of people or not.
Yeah, a great question. No, it was actually one of the most negatively received moments of the debate.
Wow.
Really kind of that...
Right.
Pushback, I think,
and that moment was the appeal to NDP Liberal switchers. Come join the Liberal Party. Only together can we defeat King Ford, right?
Right. Exactly. I think they watched, the entirety of the debate and felt an affinity for Mark Stiles, and then to have the person who'd be almost like second in their mind come and ask them to change their vote, I think, was one of the more negative moments of the debate. And really one of the only moments that was negatively received, that was on one of the more kind of center left leaders. Like that was the only thing that really rubbed people the wrong way. And in addition to, there was a little bit of like Crombie Ford crosstalk that people just never like. But yeah.
Based on
So that
those
to me is
results-
pretty interesting, right? Like that is her message, presumably from now for the next 9 days, and it didn't appeal to the people that she's trying to appeal to.
Yeah. They always resist it on the face of it. It doesn't mean that they don't go with the logic, though. I don't think that appeal is ever received. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I wonder, Kyla, I want to put you on the spot. If we could spring forward in time 3 days, based on those results, qualitative, thin as they are in terms of number of people and so on and so forth, would you expect to see any movement between the Liberal and NDP columns? Would you expect that 20, whatever the hell it was, 27 and 19 gap to move to bunched up at 23? Is that what you're guessing based on this?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I was looking as well because it just has been such a lifeless campaign, right? Like people just haven't been very engaged. So I took a quick look at, Google Trends just to see if people were paying any attention. And this does seem like the one moment of the campaign, like people are searching for the debate twice as often as they've searched for Doug Ford at any point in the last 30 days. So it does seem like something that people are going to look and, find more information than they have so far. And so depending on what clips they see, that's part of the challenge though, is that Marit was less clippable. I think that there will be a lot of stuff, and I've already seen as well a lot of, some Crombie clips. She went on this sort of...
What clip would they want though, Kyla?
There was this very uninterrupted moment. It was very kind of the other leaders to give her, but she had this uninterrupted moment where she talked about her tax cuts. She talked about like 4 different things, and that performed extremely well, especially among those kind of more conservative voters.
The one moment I thought where Marit did get her message across, and she did it more than once, was her grocery rebate. Like I actually thought if you just kind of, close your eyes and think, what did I take away from last night? For Marit, it was her performance, her sort of folksy style, but her grocery rebate, which I think is an appealing policy for people who are in that basket.
No doubt
I thought
about
the
it.
Bonnie's
grocery
best clip.
food prices are almost synonymous with cost of living right now. I mean, that is the sticky point of the cost of living crisis for people.
Right. Mm-hmm. I agree. I thought that was her best run. I thought that actually Marit's best pure run as a matter of performance was, unfortunately for her, directed at Crombie, where she hammered Crombie on her donors, and Bonnie looked off balance on the issue. But I mean, this is one of the critical things about this. If you have people watch the entire debate, they have one kind of reaction. If you have people watching clips later that are curated, what does that mean in terms of their reaction? And so there's alchemy involved. And the other thing I would say is your best moments need to be on the things that matter. So if your best moment is on ODSP, that's probably not going to change votes in this campaign. If your best moment is on the Liberals and you're the New Democrats, I'm not sure that works for you. Maybe it does if people hear about it, but it's unlikely to get clipped by news editors and news producers. That would be my gut. They're not really necessarily going to look for that piece. I thought that Bonnie had one good hard run at Ford where she said, but unfortunately it was toward the end. So unless it gets clipped, I'm not sure how many people see it, where she said to Ford, look, you had everything handed to you, man. And, you just bellow and bull like Trump Jr. I'm paraphrasing, but I thought
the silver spoon line, how'd that go over?
Yeah. Did that work?
Yeah, it registered with the more left-leaning voters. That was, in the top kind of 5, 6 moments. So yeah, resonated with people that think that anyway, and are but it also didn't receive backlash among the conservative voters. They weren't coming out to kind of defend him. But
okay, so of the soft PC vote that came in, most of which dissipated to other parties, what did they learn or see that was dissatisfying to them, do you think? I know you're pulling at little straws, but
yeah, well, I think part of the challenge is, and again, this comes to, I don't know, a feature of the design is that most people don't necessarily watch all the way through if they're watching the debate. Ford's best moments were more towards the start of the debate, which I think, is probably great outside of this research, right? If people watched the first 10 minutes and then dropped off, they got the conversation around Trump, and then the conversation around crime actually was really important and something that was helpful to them, like his talking about catch and release and, you know, little Johnny being able to terrorize people and all of that kind of stuff that performed well among the more right-leaning voters.
All right.
Oh, sorry. Also among left-leaning voters, like Mara had a good moment on that as well. Like I think she actually struck a really good balance between like we need these additional community supports and while still being like a little bit tough.
One thing that struck me, sorry to interrupt again, David. One thing that did strike me watching it in whole is that Ford didn't, and it's natural in a debate where everyone's coming at him on different issues, but Ford didn't get to spend as much time, and he found fewer and fewer opportunities to turn the debate toward Trump and tariffs and that core narrative that he's been campaigning on during the debate. So there was a lot more time having people just fling the words healthcare at him than there was him saying, we've got to protect our jobs and industry. But again, like, it's such alchemy. How many people are watching the whole debate? Goddamn few. What are the clips? Did people get a sense of that? Probably not. Maybe if all the clips are about healthcare. So, we'll have to, I mean, I hate to be boring, but you have to sort of look at it and go, I don't know, man. Like, was there something there that's going to penetrate the public consciousness and alter the trajectory of this race? I'm not certain I saw it.
No, and I would say, Scott, he did pivot to the economy a number of times on healthcare, which was comfortable ground for him.
Well, I'm curious to see how that worked, because it felt to me sometimes like he was making a trade-off, saying, listen, folks, fuck off to this healthcare stuff, because I'm working on the economy. And that's what matters most. And maybe it was my ear, but I wondered if that might bother some of those soft PC voters.
It's possible, Kyla. I'm not sure.
I thought he was effective essentially at making the point that he was the only one interested in economic growth and wealth creation in the group with them, and that they could all spend, but their money had to come from somewhere. He repeatedly went there, and for people that vote PC, that's an argument that makes a lot of sense.
Right, and he tied it to healthcare by saying you don't get any of that, you don't get to spend if you don't have a strong economy. So I actually thought he pivoted quite a few times to that, and I think is effective certainly to the voters he wants to appeal to and hold.
All right.
What was the reaction to fantasy tunnel? What a dumb idea.
Just the tunnel in general, like we asked people at the end of the debate, what was the most memorable moment? And that was one of those moments that kind of stayed with people after. Like, I think if you're opposed, you're opposed strongly. And so I saw it there. I didn't necessarily see it like spike in the moment to moment. So sometimes that happens where like things stick, but it might be kind of fleeting or not able to really pick up.
Cool.
It's funny because obviously I'm not Bonnie's target voter, but there were a couple of moments where I thought her language was like it turned me off. Yeah. Not that I was there in the first place. One was when she said dumb. I just think that lowers the level of debate. And the second one was where she talked a couple of times about two kids getting...
You must love
Polyev. A couple of times where she talked about her kids getting married, and then she actually went so far as to say, and part of it was off camera, but it came through. She said, "I don't want my grandkids living in Doug Ford's Ontario," and I thought that was way over the top, had no credibility, and I thought I was very dismissive of it, and thought, "Ooh, why would you go there with something like that?" I didn't like it at all.
That's to me the question mark of the debate, though. I had the precisely same issue. A couple of times she used the word lies, at least once, and I'm too old man Anglican church, right? I was like, but I wonder if those end up migrating into being the clips that get used, and then does that help to consolidate the anti-Ford vote? And that's the only heads nodding are all those people, and it overwhelms the dynamic that Kyla was talking about, because all the anti-Ford voters see these hotter clips and they go, yeah, that's right, I hate him too, or whatever. So who knows?
I mean, that is kind of his, like no one is coming to his defense. Like he is the most punchable figure. Like if you have, 65-70% of people agreeing that it's time for a change. His favorabilities are definitely better than everyone else's, and there's a subset of Ontarians that like him a lot, but he's this big guy that's been premier for a long time. Like, he is the ultimate kind of punching bag. So I don't really necessarily see, and didn't see in the data, people being like, oh, that was, a low blow or anything like that, which sometimes you have to be, is a concern in debates. I don't necessarily think that's the case. I just don't know that it like rung totally true. And of course, I wasn't looking at people that were stronger conservative voters, so it might have been alienating for them. I just am not sure.
My reaction was more to, having it be negative for Bonnie as opposed to negative for Doug. I just think, as I said, it didn't ring true, and it was one of those like, ooh, why would you say that moments?
No question.
I don't want to limit Doug
towards
towards Ontario. That even to my ear, that was a bit far.
Yeah.
Yeah, to my ears as well. As I was, listening and looking at the data, I thought there were moments where there was kind of like a lack of calibration. Like, she was very like,
yeah, I mean, that's a
very, very
good way
strong, and it felt almost random because it felt like disconnected from what she was saying previously. Like, it just felt very like tonally abrupt.
That's perfectly put, and that's why I get this question about. That's the way I felt looking at it in context. It felt like outbursts, like kind of out of context outbursts, like a sudden like spike of negative energy. But if that's the only clip you see, maybe it plays differently.
Yeah, she had one moment with
Mara. It might be less easy to clip.
Yeah.
Okay, Kyla, that was super interesting. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
And back into the field, and we'll look forward to our daily dose of data tomorrow.
Greetings, Canadian Political Pod listener. I'm your narrator, Gary, an artificial intelligence-generated voice. Exciting and serious sounding is what we typed in the AI voiceover input field. And boom, Gary exists. Hey, do you know what's not artificial? Not even one bit? The highly influential audiences air quotes media podcasts offer to its advertisers. And I say that with all the sincerity a machine learning, data-optimized, predictive network of interconnected neural nodes can muster. Whether your ad message is on Curse of Politics, the Hurly-Burly, Hotel Pacifico, or the brand new Race to Replace, you will be reaching cabinet ministers, members of parliament, the political class, the C-suite, and corporate Canada, leading journalists, and tens of thousands of engaged Canadians. People saying this is a unique political moment is underselling it. Policy is under scrutiny. A party leader is being voted on. The Ontario election is underway. There will be a new prime minister. And then there's the guy living in the White House who calls us the 51st state. Does anyone remember another time like this? I'm instantly scouring millions of data points to answer my own rhetorical question. No, you do not. This is when you need to get your message to the decision makers. Email us at contact@airquotesmedia.com. You'll be dealing with Jill and Todd, who are real, not artificial at all people, and generally very friendly. Well, Jill is anyway. We're still deciding about Todd.
Okay. Let's go to our segments. Do-overs. Scott, you got a do-over?
Yeah, I'll stick with the debate. And I mentioned this yesterday, so I'll come back to it today. The off-mic, modest interventions. It's a pet peeve of mine for debate prep. It happened numerous times last night with Bonnie.
You mean the chipping in from the sideline?
The chipping in, the chirping. All right. So not a full intervention. We say, Mr. Premier, just a moment. I want to correct you on that. That's wrong. Instead, just the kind of off camera, off mic laughing or, oh, come on. No, and it happened numerous times. I think it's, I don't think it's a flattering look. I don't think it helps. And so I wish that had been addressed and smoothed out, but easy to say when you're sitting behind your desk watching the debate.
Yeah. Deb, did you have a do-over?
So I struggled again today because I actually think the premier's, we can talk a little bit of tweaking and that sort of thing, but everything he needed to do, he did last night from my perspective. So And obviously, there was nothing else happening in the last couple of days other than debate prep and the debate. I mentioned this yesterday, so at the risk of being a do-over on my do-over, I do think the team needs to be a little cautious about alienating the media. They're still going to cover him. They have no choice. He's the premier. But he skipped the Q&A with the media last night. And again, if it shows up in the press, it's not going to take him down. It's not going to move numbers, but it's an unnecessary irritant. And I actually think he's pretty good with Q&A. He can follow what he needs to do. He can handle the press. And I just worry a little bit that it'll be a bumpy 4 years if the press are so pissed at him, quite frankly.
Right.
I get why they're doing it. Like, it's a safe strategy, but I think it's an unnecessarily safe strategy because he can handle himself.
Okay. So just a quick look ahead then.
Wait, you don't have a do-over?
Me? No, I don't have a do-over today. Just a quick look ahead then to given last night, what we thought about it, what you thought about it, what Kyla thought about it, what the campaigns thought about it. What are people doing? What are campaigns? I know the leaders are off now on their new thing, but what are the campaigns needing to do today?
Advertising, advertising, advertising.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think you're going to see two ways of advertising. First, you're going to see like just digital and own stuff go out of the debate hard, trying to capture a moment and persuade people that are interested in paying attention that this was the moment that mattered in the debate. So you're going to see that for 48 hours, and then you're going to see the closing advertising argument. And I think, it'll be interesting. I still have a feeling, and I know this is just probably bias, I have a feeling that Doug's numbers are going to drift down a bit. I think it was a sustained, period of attack. I feel like Trump and tariffs haven't dominated our discussion for a period of time. And I just feel a little bit now. He's got 47 points worth of air in his balloon, but I think a little air is going to come out of that balloon.
He's got another trip to Washington. So, I mean, we're going to be back on tariffs, whether we like it or not. I also think that, we need to start looking at not just the aggregate numbers, but where is that support? Because I still think, we started this podcast, we talked about no official opposition in the legislature, which I don't think is the case. But, when you look at where Bonnie's support is, broadly speaking, across the province, and you look at Mart's, you need to figure out how this translates into seats. And I think that still is in Mart's favor over Bonnie's.
What would you do, Scott, about the fact, if you believed Kyla's minute-to-minute real-time stuff, that the center left, the people that were undecided really about who they were, who was the right person, who wasn't for them, that those people saw something in Stiles last night? Because if you're Crombie, you got to be encouraged by the fact that you appear to have been appealing to the soft conservative vote. And you needed to do that because you need to bring some votes from them direct to you. But at the same time, you can't be losing any to the left while you're doing that, or you end up in the same boat you're in.
I end up with a boring answer to your question, I think, because I don't think the antidote to the phenomenon that Kyla identified is to say, hey, everybody on the left, center, left, come join me. I think that direct appeal is that logic has to come into force with 3 days left in the campaign. I think you got to be
too early to play that card.
It's way too early. I think you got to be very careful about how you make that ask. So if your thinking is, well, I'll just stick to that closing argument, I think that would be a mistake. I think the reason I say my answer is boring is that I think instead the only way to go is to own the issue set that matters more to those people clearly. And I think it is probably going to be about advertising. And I think you need to have the best, most noticeable ad of the campaign. It's got to be around healthcare, and it's got to be around the grittiness of healthcare. It's got to be about the inability to get that ER doctor or get the family doctor or the miserable experience that someone has while they're, waiting to take their kid to see a doctor, and you're surrounded in an emergency room for 7 hours and people are puking next to you. Like, I think it's got to be something that tries to own that space. You think I'm wrong?
Well, I don't know how you'd. I kind of don't agree, because I don't know how you'd address that in address this in advertising. But I continue to believe that people don't need to know that healthcare is bad. They don't need to know that ERs are closed. They don't need to know that wait times are long. They don't need to know that lots of people have a family doctor. They need to know that somebody will change that.
Right.
They need to know that somebody will make a difference. And that, to me, is what's missing from this. And I think you can attack Ford on healthcare all you want if you don't convince people that you're going to do something different than he's doing.
Switch Jane Philpott. She endorses the Liberals with 4 days to go. He used her last night like she was a magic shield. People would say healthcare. He go Jane Philpott. People at home are going, who the fuck? What is a fucking Jane Philpott? But anyway, so there you go, David. She brings.
But
I have Jane Philpott. Like when Woody Allen brought out Marshall McLuhan. That's the answer.
But we also know that nobody rises to the top when it comes to who can fix it. And Bonnie's not made the case that she's the one. She's not given you an explanation of why she's going to be better at it. She's not kind of put and here's what's going to fall behind because I'm so committed to healthcare. Like she's not actually laid it out in a way that people say, I think she actually means it.
Okay, let's wrap this up. Blessings and curses. Who wants to go first?
Well, I'm going to go where Scott went yesterday, which is I'm going to put a curse on the people who organized the debate. Scott mentioned the timing yesterday, 6:30 to 8. I mean, my God, my household struggled to sit down and watch it at 6:30. Tim was still out shoveling when it started. I mean, it was a terrible time. I did not like the format at all. I thought it was very stiff and wooden. And look, I know Steve Paikin did it for eons, and maybe it was time to switch things up, but I thought he was far better in terms of handling the debate and how you actually got better interactions. I didn't like the stage. I didn't like the look. I didn't like anything about it, quite frankly.
Huh. That's interesting. I quite like the format. I thought David did a great job of managing it. And I like the fact that there are so many opportunities for managed combat. So it wasn't complete chaos, but you got to see people really going at each other. But
I liked this idea. I liked this idea about if you were attacked, you got to respond.
Yeah.
Although that gave the premier more airtime, which, you could argue isn't exactly the way to go, either for him or for the others, quite frankly.
All right, Scott, blessing or curse?
My curse is very personal. My curse is asking people to do post-debate analysis. It's a lame territory. I spent a lot of time on radio and TV yesterday after the debate going and having people ask me the same kind of question. Was there a knockout blow? Was somebody's teeth shattered and laying on the floor? And, it's just, and so people move toward this kind of, I thought like they had good moments and they had good moments. It probably wasn't enough to change the needle. And even as I'm saying these things, I'm thinking to myself, I wish I had a remote control and could switch myself off. I'm so goddamn colorless and uninteresting. So I think post-debate analysis is my curse of the day. And therefore I'm placing a curse upon myself.
There you go. And I will be personally looking for you to be more interesting tomorrow.
Let's hope.
Yeah. All right. My blessing goes out to the two opposition parties, NDP and the Liberals. If according to Kyla's research, votes are potentially moving, and I say potentially because it depends on whether they saw anything and what they saw. But there are things that were there that apparently can change people's opinions. And it doesn't surprise me because most people have a rather tenuous connection to their vote at the moment. So there are things out there. It's just up to you to find the right one and get it in front of people. So what is it? If you're Crombie or Stiles, what is it that happened last night that is your best foot forward? Because probably better than anything else you've got going, this has the potential to shift some votes into your column. And it is unclear which way they're going to go or where they're going to land. But it appears that some fish are loose. So gather them in. All right. I'd like to thank our original sponsor, Aurea, and our polling sponsor, Enbridge, for their support today. I want to thank you people that are watching and listening to this podcast, Kyla for her research, and of course, you two, who, unlike Jordan, are loyal, faithful people. Show up when it counts. All right. We'll see you all tomorrow morning. Take care of yourselves.